Hola artistas, welcome to Arte with Maestro William. Today we're going to be doing a read aloud. We're going to be reading In My Family, a book that's been illustrated and written by Carmen Lomas Garza. But before we get started, let's do our In La Quech poem. If you could please say it after me. In La Quech, you are my other me. If I do harm to you, I do harm to myself. If I love and respect you, I love and respect myself. In La Quech. And artistas, just a friendly reminder that poem is a Mayan poem, and it's written as a reminder that both you and I are interconnected, and what you do affects me, and what I do affects you. So let's get started. I'm really excited about sharing this book with you. Because Carmen Lomas Garza is one of my favorite artists. And I'm particularly interested in the way that she paints and then writes about her own personal experiences. As you may know, we don't always get represented in books. So this is a really great way for us to start thinking about what kind of stories we want to document, what kind of stories do we want to, share and amplify, both whether it's for our chosen family or our biological family. All right, but let's get started. So this is In My Family by Carmen Lomas Garza. And this is a little thing that she wrote here. It says, every time I paint, it serves a purpose to bring about pride in our Mexican American culture. When I was growing up, a lot of us were punished for speaking Spanish. We were punished for being who we were, and we were made to feel ashamed for our culture. That was very wrong. My art is a way of healing these wounds. Like the savila plant or aloe vera heals burns and scrapes when applied by a loving parent or grandparent. The painting and stories in this book are my memories of growing up in Kingsville, Texas, near the border with Mexico. This is my second book of family pictures. So this is the first painting, and it's called The Horned Toads. When we were kids, my mother and grandmother would get mad at us for playing in the hot sun in the middle of the day. They'd say we were just like the horned toads at high noon, playing outside without a care. I was fascinated by the horned toads. They're shaped like frogs, but they're not frogs. They're lizards. They have horns all over their bodies to protect them from bigger animals that want to eat them. Here's my brother Arturo, trying to feed an ant to a horned toad. I'm behind him, on my toes, because I don't want the ants to crawl up on me. Those are fire ants. They can really sting. This is the next painting here, artistas, and this is called Cleaning Nopalitos. This is my grandfather, Antonio Lomas. He's shaving off the thorns from freshly cut cactus pads, called nopalitos. My sister Margie is watching him work. Nopalitos are called the food of last resort because back when there were no refrigerators and your winter food supply would run out, you knew you could eat the cactus pads through the last days of winter and the early days of spring. My grandmother would boil the nopalitos in salt water, cut them up, and stir-fry them with a chile and eggs for breakfast. That sounds delicious. Have you ever had eggs with nopalitos? They are delicious. So let's continue with this next one right here. This is called Empanadas. Oh, look at that. Look at that beautiful, beautiful painting by Carmen Lomas Garza showing her family making empanadas. Well, let's read more about it and see what happens here. Once every year, my Aunt Paz and Uncle Beto would make dozens and dozens of empanadas. Sweet turnovers filled with sweet potato or squash from their garden. They would invite all the relatives and friends to come over, and you could eat as many as you wanted. They lived in a little one-bedroom house, and every surface in the house was covered with a plate of empanadas. There was no place to sit down. There's Uncle Beto, rolling out the dough. Aunt Paz, in the yellow dress with the red flowers, is spreading the filling. My mother and father are drinking coffee. That's me in the blue dress. Artistas, have you ever had empanadas before? Here's our third painting. This is called birthday barbecue. This is my sister Mary Jane's birthday party. She's hitting a piñata. That's my mother made. My mother also baked and decorated the cake. There she is, bringing the meat that's already cooked. My father's cooking at the barbecue, which he designed and built himself. My grandfather is shoveling in the coals of mesquite woods. Underneath the tree are some young teenagers, very much in love. My great uncle is comforting my young cousin who was crying and encouraging him to hit the piñata. My grandmother is holding a baby. She was always holding the babies and feeding them and putting them to sleep. Artistas, if you notice this right here, have you ever had an opportunity to be at a birthday party with a piñata? I love piñatas. I'm not always great at breaking them, but I love the piñatas. Here's another one here. This is called Easter eggs. And it goes like this. This is my parents' dining room. My mother and brothers and sisters and I are gathered around the table decorating eggshells, cascarones, for Easter Sunday. We would fill them with confetti, which we made by cutting up newspapers and magazines. On Easter Sunday, after church, we would go swimming. After swimming, we'd eat. And after eating, we'd bring out our cascarones. We would sneak up on our brothers or sisters or friends, break the cascarones on their heads, and rub the confetti into the hair. Sometimes my brothers would put flour in the eggshells, so when they broke them on your wet head, the flour would turn to paste. That's how sneaky my brothers were sometimes. Have you ever done cascarones before, artistas? I have to be honest, I hated them when I was little, because guess who always got them? Me. Alright, artistas, let's continue with this next one here. This one is called earache treatment. I remember watching my mother and father go out to the front porch with a bucket of water. My mother took a sheet of newspaper, rolled it up into a cone shape, and placed it on my father's ear. She kept telling us to stay back. She very briefly ignited the paper, then threw it into the water to extinguish it. I was amazed. You see, my father would sometimes get water trapped in his outer ear when he went swimming because of an injury when he was in the Navy during World War II. This treatment, called ventosa, would create a vacuum and evaporate the water. Have you ever tried anything like this, artistas? Or any type of at-home remedies that your mom or grandma or tia or tío would do? Let's see. This, artistas, is called healer. And it goes something like this. This is Doña Maria, a curandera, or healer. My mother asked her to do a cleansing on my youngest sister, Mary Jane, who had changed from a nice little preteen to a very rebellious teenager. The curandera came every day for about 2 weeks. She would burn copal incense, read a prayer, and brush my sister with the branches from a ruda plant. My sister got better after this. She calmed down and made peace with my mother. Besides being a healer, the curandera was also a counselor. She helped my mother and my sister communicate. I think that's why my sister got better. Artistas, do you have any curanderas in your family? Anyone that you go to when you need advice that can give you a little counseling? I needed a curandera growing up too. Let's see this one right here. This is called The Weeping Woman. My grandmother used to tell a story about La Llorona, the weeping woman. The one I remember best is that she was a woman in Mexico whose children were starving. She couldn't stand it, so she drowned them in a river, then drowned herself. Her soul still roams the earth, looking for her children. Across the street from our house was an empty lot, with spiders and snakes and who knows what else. My parents would say, if you go there, La Llorona will get you. In my imagination, the street became the river where La Llorona drowned her children. I imagined that the children were floating in the river and that La Llorona was there, reaching out for them. Oof, that La Llorona story always gets me. No matter how old I am, it's still scary. have you ever heard the story of La Llorona? Or how about any other stories that may scare you? Let's see. Let's go to this one. This is called The Virgin of Guadalupe, and it goes something like this. The Virgin of Guadalupe appeared to the indigenous person Juan Diego outside Mexico City in 1531. The Virgin said to Juan Diego, "Go ask the bishop to build a church for me here." But the bishop didn't believe that Juan Diego had seen the Virgin. So the Virgin told Juan Diego, "Go back and take these with you." Suddenly, Juan Diego saw roses, blooming roses, even though it wasn't the blooming time of the year. This time the bishop was astonished. Not only did he see the roses, he also saw on Juan Diego's cloak an image of the Virgin of Guadalupe. I painted this picture for a Filipina woman who loved the Virgin of Guadalupe. That's her in the painting with her 4 sons. Oh, look at that, artistas. What a beautiful painting. This here, it's called The Miracle. One day, my mother heard that the image of the Virgin of Guadalupe had appeared on the water tank of a little ranch in South Texas. We got in the trunk and drove out to see. There was a constant stream of people making a pilgrimage to the site, bringing flowers and offerings. Not everybody could see the image, but most people could. 2 young cowboys had shot some rattlesnakes and hung them at the foot of the water tank. They were warning people not to go into the cotton fields because there were rattlesnakes out there. I'm in the blue dress holding my mother's hand, and there's my brother Arturo following us. Oh, look at that, artistas. I love the way Carmen Lomas Garza paints her art. If you notice, look at how she uses the foreground, middle ground, and background to break up her painting. And all these people have different poses with different facial expressions. I love noticing all those little tiny details. Let's see, this one is called One Afternoon. This is my grandmother Elisa's house. I was 10 or 11, and my friend was a couple of years older. She always wanted to visit my grandmother, and one day I figured out why. It was because she had a crush on a boy that lived nearby. This was their chance to visit each other. Of course, it was okay with my grandmother. She was there, chaperoning, overseeing everything. My grandmother's crocheting. She was good at making things, just like my mother. She used to let me braid the fringe of the bedspread. I'd be braiding and braiding, but I would have to unbraid everything when it was time to go. Miren, artistas. Look at this. You see the grandmother here, and this is Carmen Lomas Garza, and this is the friend with the boy that she liked. Let's see. This is called Blessings on a Wedding Day. This is a cousin's wedding. The bridesmaid is waiting to put the veil on the bride. The father is waiting at the doorway. The grandmother is all dressed and ready to go. Then, all of a sudden, everyone gets very quiet because the mother of the bride says it's time for her to bless her daughter. She asks the daughter to kneel down on a cushion. The daughter is about to leave her parents' house. This is the mother's opportunity to bless her daughter, give her advice, and send her off on the next phase of her life. It's a very special moment. Have you ever been to the wedding where you see the bride or the groom getting ready? Let's continue with this. And I believe this is the last painting, artistas. So this is called Dance at El Jardín. This is a Saturday night at El Jardín, a neighborhood restaurant in my hometown. It's the summer, so warm that you can dance outside. A conjunto band is playing. Drums, accordion, guitar, and bass. This is the music I grew up with. Everybody's dancing in a big circle. The young couples, the older couples, and the old folks dancing with the teenagers or children. Even babies get to dance. I learned to dance from my father and grandfather. This is where my love of dance started. To me, dance means fiesta. Celebration. You have the music, the beautiful clothes, and all the family members dancing together. It's like heaven. It is heaven. Miren, artistas, if you can tell right here, you see all the people dancing. You see this young man right here kind of staring. That would have been me, just kind of staring. I wasn't much of a big dancer, but I love the music. And artistas, if you notice, this is a photo of Carmen Lomas Garza here. And artistas, colorín colorado, este cuento se ha acabado. The story is now over, but I want to thank you for listening and being patient as we read this book. And I want to ask you, what kind of stories do you want to illustrate? What kind of stories do you get to experience with either your chosen or your biological family? What kind of stories do we want to tell people that don't always get told about us? I invite you to make some drawings and think about what kind of stories you want to tell to the future generation. All right, well, I think this is it. But before we go, I want to remind you, all power to all people, artistas. Until next time.